Hello everybody, welcome back to another Mystic Islands video. How is it going today? I actually have not uploaded a video in almost 2 weeks now, and that is because I have school going on, as you guys know from before, and I had family issues as well. So I'm very sorry about that, but I am back. I'm going to be trying to upload at least 1 to 2 videos a week. I'm going to try to do the best I can, but with college it is pretty hard. But we're going to do our best and keep grinding to try to get set 2 out before Christmas. That would be a perfect time so that I could advertise right for Christmas and you guys could get it, for Christmas. That'd be awesome. Basically today I was thinking of some video ideas and I was getting kind of dry, but I decided to make a video based on what factions might work well together. So as you do know, I do have the starter decks available right now. And they have 2 factions in each, and those are actually examples of 2 factions that I thought would go nicely together. But obviously it was just a random guess, and I had not really known what the meta would be in the game or anything like that, so we're going to try to go over that today. So one thing I would like to go over first is, if you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe to the channel, of course. I would really appreciate it. This game is coming out with set 2 very soon, hopefully. So today I'm going to start off by telling you what each faction does, essentially its playstyle, and then that way we can decide which factions could mix well together. So we'll start off with the Goblin faction. So for example, right here there's a card called Goblin Ambush. Costs 3, 4 attack, 3 defense. When casted, your opponent either discards 2 cards from their hand or loses 4 health. They get to choose. So the Goblin faction is very aggressive. Almost too aggressive sometimes, as some of the cards can actually hurt you. For instance, right here, Bloodthirsty is an ability card that costs 2. Target creature or caster takes 4 damage. When you cast this ability, you lose 2 health. So basically it is so aggressive that it's going to deal a lot of damage to your opponent or their creatures, but it's also going to make you lose 2 health as well. So you have to be strategic when you play these cards, but you have to basically stay very aggressive and maintain that aggressiveness throughout the game, or else you could lose control of the game and then obviously die in the process. Another card right here as an example is Grunt Goblin. Now this guy is pretty small. Most of the goblins are not very strong creatures unless they have orcs or ogres as well are included in the Goblin faction. But goblins by themselves are pretty weak, so this guy's a 0 attack, 1 defense, and he looks pretty hilarious. I love him. But it says, when this creature dies, deal 4 points of damage to the caster that killed Grunt Goblin. So basically he'll just sit there. You can attack with him, I guess, but he won't do any damage. You can attack him to a stronger creature and get him killed, and then that way they killed your creature. They take 4 damage. Or if leave him up on defense, they attack you, they're going to pay the price of 4 damage for killing your creature. So he's basically, I would say he's a defensive card, but he's kind of also offensive in a way. So kind of the opposite of the Goblin faction would be the Mage faction. They're a little bit different here. This guy is a good example of that. He costs 3, 0 attack, 5 defense. This creature cannot attack, and it is idle, so it is unaffected by ability cards if they try to hit it with a Bloodthirsty or any other type of ability card to affect this creature. It won't do anything. So this guy is basically very defensive. The Mage faction is not very aggressive. It can be in short spurts, but not overall with the entire faction. So it wouldn't be a great deck to make with just the Mage faction by itself. Have an aggro deck probably. But it is very defensive in certain situations. But it is also more about control than anything. This guy helps out with that. Is Supreme Spellcaster, cost 6, 6 attack, 7 defense, still a little bit heavy on the defense. As long as this creature is on the battlefield, all Mage ability cards you play cost 1 less Chaos Crystal, and as long as they cost 3 or more. So he trims off 1 crystal to your more expensive ability cards, and that is very useful since the ability cards for the Mage faction are very powerful, because obviously they use spells and magic the most out of any island in the Mystic Islands. One example of these ability cards, is Ritual Madness. It costs 4. Every time your opponent draws a card, they lose 1 health. If this card is destroyed, add 1 crystal to your stash. It's a permanent ability card that stays on the battlefield until it is destroyed. So this is actually a very nice card, especially if you can play it for 1 less with Supreme Spellcaster, as I said earlier. That way, your opponent, just for playing the game, you're going to pick up a card every turn, so they're going to be losing 1 health every turn until they get rid of this. And as soon as they get rid of this, you're actually getting a resource back as well. So that's very powerful, and it's either they have to bite the bullet of losing 1 health every turn, or they have to essentially spend 2 crystals to counter this, and then give you a crystal in return. So either way, they're not going to be very happy. We're going to move over to the Dwarf faction now. This guy's Gadney the Warrior, costs 7. 7 attack, 7 defense. One of the biggest cards in the game for sure. When casted, put a +1 attack, +1 defense counter on target creature. That is not him. And he has Obstruct, meaning any extra damage after he dies would not affect the caster. So if you hit him for 9 damage, even though he only has 7 defense, it would not, the extra 2 damage would not bleed through to your health. So that's nice. But I mean, he's so big that the odds that happens are slim, but nice to have anyway. So basically the dwarves deal is they are just giant creatures. Not in the sense of physical size in the Mystic Islands universe. They are shorter, but they are very strong and they live hundreds of years, and that is why they are so strong. Basically, they are miners, so they're just digging all day, mining away, and they use axes, hammers, things like that, and they love doing what they're doing, and they're going to keep doing it for hundreds of years until they are strong enough to take you on, and that's what they're going to do. So obviously not all dwarves are built the same. This guy is smaller, Mystic Dwarf, 1 attack, cost 1, 2 attack, 1 defense. And this guy is actually very useful. He has the skill of sacrificing himself to pay 1 towards another creature during one of the turns that he is active. So active basically means that when he's on the battlefield, as long as he's on the battlefield alive and it's your turn. So that's all that really means there. So you can essentially play him, attack with him, do whatever you need, and you can sacrifice him during your turn to help pay 1 towards another dwarf. And fitting with the big creatures, basically, is Dwarf Boar Warrior. This guy's not as big as Gadney the Warrior or Magni Bronzebeard, which you might have seen before, but he is actually very useful because of his skills that he has. So he costs 5, 6 attack, 4 defense, still very solid, but 4 defense is scary, especially when ability cards can deal 4 damage in the game at the moment. But you're protected because he has the idle skill, just like Safeguarding Soul earlier. So he cannot be affected by ability cards at all. So you don't have to worry about him getting zapped out of the air with ability cards. So a creature is going to have to kill him. And if you attack him with a lot of damage, he also has Obstruct, so that damage will not hit you either. So this guy's very strong, basically one of the more powerful dwarfs in the game so far. We're going to switch over to the Royalty faction. And basically what this guy does is Noble Knight, cost 2, 1 attack, 2 defense, gain X health this turn. X stands for the amount of cards you have left in your hand. He's just gaining you health. He can gain you up to 3 health. So generally, the Royalty faction loves to gain you health, help you out there, and then they like to use counters to buff their seemingly weaker creatures than most of the other factions. One instance of this is Sword of the Mighty, the ability card right here. Give target creature +1 attack, +1 defense until death. Once you've used this card, it goes to the bottom of your graveyard. So that's very nice. It's a good way to just give a little bit of a buff to your creature if he needs a little bit more to defeat your opponent's strongest creature. This guy is actually very powerful as well. You need to stop him early game if you see him come out on the battlefield. He costs 6, 7 attack, 6 defense. Very strong. So the Royalty faction, for the most part, has pretty strong rares. And this is because the rest of their cards are not as strong. And these guys, especially Dusk Rider right here, is going to help a lot. So when Dusk Rider kills a creature, give a +1/+1 counter to all Royalty faction creatures on the battlefield. And this is continuous until Dusk Rider is dead. Obviously it does not include him though, so that is okay. But every time Dusk Rider kills a creature, let's say you have a Noble Knight on the battlefield right here, he's going to get buffed +1/+1 permanently. He kills another one, he's going to get buffed again, and so will the rest of the Royalty faction creatures on the entire battlefield. So if your opponent has them too, it's going to affect them too, so you got to be strategic with that, but the odds that that happens are somewhat slim. So the pirate faction is honestly one of the weaker factions when it comes to pure creature strength, but they actually make up for this in a lot of different ways. So one of the ways that they make up for this is speed. So right here, as you can see, Solo Drunken Sailor, he costs 1, 2 attack, 1 defense. It's actually pretty decent stats there. And it says when this creature is played onto the battlefield, lose 2 health. So that is a downside, but it's definitely made up for by the fact that he is untapped, meaning he comes in ready to attack or block as soon as he is casted. And that is very important. One of the best cards in the game, I think, for early game for sure. One of my favorite artworks as well, very recognizable. And that is one way that they get around these small creatures. Another way is actually conserving their chaos crystals or their resources. And the way they do this is a few different cards have different ways to do this, but this one right here, Coin Hungry Buccaneer, costs 2. 2 attack, 2 defense, pretty basic there. But when he's casted, if this is the only creature on your battlefield, add an extra crystal to your stash. So essentially you just play him for 1 instead, get a little bit of a discount because he is your only dude on the battlefield and he is coin hungry. And this card as well is going to help you out here. You're going to be drawing lots of cards with the pirate faction because they love to draw cards and get you more things. They know that they're not the strongest, but they know with lots of numbers they might be able to do something with it. So Precious Gems right here cost 3, ability card. And this is pretty much the opposite of Ritual Madness earlier. It says every time you draw a card, gain 1 health. And it is a permanent ability card as well. So this is going to be helping you survive a little bit longer while you come up with some strategies with the pirate faction. The last faction we're going to talk about right now is Clumsy Bones, cost 1, 1 attack, 4 defense. He's the Decay skill. So basically what that means is he's going to lose 1 defense permanently every turn he's on the battlefield. So you think this sucks? Why would I want this card at all? Well, because with the skeletons, you actually want your creatures to die. Yes, you want your creatures to die. That is weird. But it is because they are already dead, so they don't mind being in the graveyard, and they will actually sacrifice themselves for their caster. So him dying will actually help because Aged Skeleton Soldier over here cost 5. He has X's for his attack and defense. Basically it says right here, this creature's attack and defense are equal to the amount of skeleton faction creatures in the graveyard. He's got a limit of 7 on him, but the faster your creatures die, the faster this guy gets stronger. And he could be a powerhouse, 7/7 for 5 crystals. That could be huge right there. There's also Colossal Bone Breaker. He's a beast as well. And this is a great way to overwhelm your opponent and get stronger creatures with them than them while they're trying to kill your creatures, which is exactly what you want. Another way they help as well is they give slight discounts to creatures or the caster, depending on which skeleton it is, because they are here to serve you and get revenge and try to take down as many people as they can, but they will eventually fall. And that is why Skeleton Arrowist costs 2, 3 attack, 1 defense. When this creature dies, add 1 crystal to your stash. So even though he is dying, he is helping out his caster. So guys, I know this video is a little bit longer right now, but I do want to go over a few combinations that I have liked recently. And if you guys come up with any combinations that I didn't think of or didn't think would work well, let me know for sure. And hit me up on Untapped or on under YouTube. You can let me know if you want to play on untapped.in. Mystic Islands is available on there. So basically one of my favorite combinations is Mage Goblin. This is because the defensive nature of the mages is good in certain games when the opponent is trying to overwhelm me with damage. I can sit back, relax a little bit, and try to take out their things slowly and then try to build over them and then become aggressive back when they're on the defensive. And then I also, if they start the game off defensive, I can grab my goblins, go out, and try to deal as much damage as I can and use my mages just to protect me while I'm trying to take out my opponent. So that's one of my favorite combinations, but probably my favorite combination right now is Pirate Dwarf. This is not something I thought would be very powerful. I actually thought the starter deck was the weakest one, but I was wrong. Dwarf Boar Warrior was actually one of the stronger cards in the game, and I did not realize this until the set was released, and actually a few months after that. And that actually makes the deck very powerful, especially with the ability of the pirates to gain some extra resources and more cards in your hand. That way you can get your stronger cards in your hand and also have some little guys that are quick, It can get you out of a pinch. Another deck that I haven't seen too many people run at all actually is just a pure royalty deck. I know we're talking about mixing decks, but a royalty deck by itself is actually very strong, and in some cases another faction could slow it down. But you really just want as many royalty faction creatures as you can. If you get Duskrider out and start killing a few creatures, your army is going to become very strong over time, and your opponent's going to get overwhelmed, and you're going to be throwing these little humans at them with little swords, and they're not going to be very happy. Another deck that is very interesting, I didn't think would work at all, was the Skeleton Goblin deck. Now, my neighbor actually runs this, and I'll probably have some gameplay of that in the future, us playing against each other. So that's going to be really sweet, but it is just a very powerful deck. The fact that he has skeletons that are willing to die for him and give him crystals and cast other cards for cheaper is very good, and then he already has very cheap goblins that can deal a lot of damage, and he loves throwing those out just to annoy you. Don't forget about Bloodthirsty, because he's going to throw that at you every chance he gets. A deck I've been trying out is the Skeleton Royalty as well. That's actually been a pretty fun deck build, and it is actually a pretty good way to get some things out of your graveyard, because Speech of the Dead is a royalty ability, and you can use that together with the Skeleton faction to bring some creatures back from the dead. So there is obviously a bunch of combinations you could go. You could do Pirate, Skeleton, Pirate, Mage, Pirate Royalty. You could do so many combinations with just a specific faction alone. You can run just one faction. Let me know what your guys' favorite faction is and your favorite faction combination down below. I really appreciate it. Sorry if this video was a little bit long, but I figured if I'm going to be making videos that are very spaced apart, I might as well give you guys some content. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Stay mystic.